The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl by Ryan North and Erica Henderson is one of the most interesting comic books of recent years, not just for the stories it holds, but for the conversation around it. I first heard about the book in a negative light, so I didn't really care to check it out. But last year, as I was scrolling through Comixology, I found out that most of the volumes were rated 5 stars, which really surprised me, because when looking at Reddit to see what fans think of the character, it is a warfare. I have never seen a comic being talked about so strongly on both ends, and yet, despite its divisive reception among fans, it got many people of all ages into comics, won an Eisner in 2017 as the best publication for teens, and ran for 58 consecutive issues, a milestone that many obscure comic characters can only dream of having. Of course, I had to check it out, and I did. After reading a good chunk of the run, I have come away with a newfound appreciation for the series and the character. Even though I didn't become the biggest Squirrel Girl fan out there, there's a certain charm to the series that most comics just don't possess. My appreciation for it mostly comes from the fact that it is so weird. Like, how does this even exist? Level of weird. The comic stars Doreen Green, a college student studying programming alongside her black friend, comically named, wait for it, Nancy Whitehead. The main cast of the book also includes Brain Drain, Koi Boy, Chipmunk Hunk, and Doreen's pet squirrel, Tippy Toe. This series does not take itself seriously at all, which I think is actually what makes it special. With most superhero comics trying to get you invested in its serious narrative that has the weight of the world, which I still enjoy by the way, it's just nice to see a Marvel comic that is just about having fun. I especially enjoy it when other characters in the Marvel Universe show up in the pages of Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. You get to see a spoof version of them, and some genuinely hilarious stuff comes out of it. She faces multiple villains like Kraven the Hunter, Galactus, and the Rhino, but what is so interesting about the series is the way Doreen handles these infamous villains. Half of the time, the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl doesn't actually beat the villains through physical means, but by cleverly talking to them and empathizing with their struggles. She talks before she punches, and I think that's a really cool thing. This makes Squirrel Girl a hero that kids could look up to, while also making the comic really funny in the process. There's this panel of Doreen holding a thief and teaching him about financial literacy in a bookstore, and it is just the best. When Kraven goes after Tippy Toe, Doreen's pet squirrel, Doreen makes him question his entire motivation to defeat Spider-Man. For those who don't know, Kraven hunts Spider-Man to prove to himself that he is a capable hunter. But Squirrel Girl tells him to pursue other creatures, underwater creatures like Gigantos, who have barely even been seen. Kraven actually buys into it, befriends Doreen, and even becomes a guest star in some of the later story arcs, being a supportive friend of the butt-kicking hero. This is just one of the many instances where feuds are resolved through conversation rather than violence. And honestly, there are way more hilarious story arcs than this one. But I chose this specific example to show Ryan North and Erica Henderson's deep understanding and love for the Marvel Universe. In a way, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl is a love letter to all things Marvel, making fun and celebrating the quirks of this vast and dense universe. Speaking of quirks, let's go talk about some of the funny stuff in this book. This comic is insane and takes twists and turns that I never expect. There's a story arc where Doreen tries dating and absolutely fails. She ends up dating a dude who does not believe in superheroes for some reason. And Mole Man appears from underground. He wants to destroy Squirrel Girl and the city because of what happened with Kraven earlier. Remember that Doreen convinced Sergei Kravenov to hunt creatures who have never been seen by mankind before? It turns out that he has been brawling and picking fights with random creatures he sees underground, who just so happen to be Mole Man's henchmen. Mole Man is also frustrated at the fact that humankind throws garbage underground, making his home a literal wasteland. Squirrel Girl responds, as usual, with empathy. Dude, it's obvious you're upset, but I hope you can see any hardships I inflicted on you were unintentional. And Harvey, if that has been my effect, well, I'm really sorry. You accept my version of events? Dude, I accept the truth of your lived experiences, and I'm not gonna tell you your feelings are wrong. Thanks, honestly dude, I'd be cheesed off if I were you too. You live alone, underground, not just ignored by the surface world, but actually forgotten. And the people up here keep messing with you without even realizing it. This heart-to-heart moment continues on for a few pages, but something really weird starts to develop. My life below has been one of solitary pursuits, milady, which unfortunately has left certain matters of the heart, well, buried, if you'll pardon my expression. But you've awoken something I'd long thought lost. Oh haha, well, all in a day's work. I'd better be going now, okay, bye. We've only just met, yet you understand me like no one else. In your grace, I find not only acceptance, not only kindness, but also strength, and uncommon beauty. And you must pardon my brazeness in saying this, but your tale is as intoxicating as it is captivating. Oh no. I am but a simple mole man, but I swear I can give you a life unlike any other. I offer you riches, my kingdom, my endless underground empire. Will you give me a chance? Oh no, why are you kneeling down? You don't need to kneel. No. Squirrel Girl, will you be my mom, ma'am? It is insane. In 8 pages, he's gone from wanting to beat Squirrel Girl up to wanting to be her husband. The look on Nancy Whitehead and Ken Shiga, aka Koi Boy, in the next page is both priceless and unforgettable. This book is stupid, and that is why so many people love it. There's a story arc where there's this evil old lady who can communicate with animals and attempts to take over the world by controlling disease-carrying mosquitoes and unleashing them on the city. There's also this other arc where Doreen and Nancy win a programming contest and their prize is a trip to the Savage Land. But the twist is that the Savage Land is dying and the contest winners have to use their programming skills to fix this alien technology that keeps the dinosaurs in the Savage Land afloat. Oh yeah, and they also fight a dinosaur version of Ultron in this one, and he's actually pretty cool looking. There's even an issue that is made by Squirrel Girl herself, who convinced characters like Galactus, Wolverine, and Howard the Duck to make short comics so that they could be compiled and sold for charity. The amount of creativity in this issue is astounding, and it's fun to see how good characters like Kraven and Logan are at writing and illustrating. Through Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, you could see a totally different side of the Marvel Universe, one that is so stupid and weird, but also charming and wholesome. Unbeatable Squirrel Girl just wants you to have a good time laughing at and appreciating just how silly the comic book world is. You can even tell that both Ryan North and Erica Henderson are having fun writing the book. Under every page, there are footnotes by Ryan, usually joking about the panel above, and it's pretty awesome stuff. Even the letters page is entertaining. If there is one thing that we can take away from the book, it's that comics are silly. We can often get carried away by our emotions when talking about comics with others online, and whenever we're disappointed by a book's low quality. But at the end of the day, comics and other hobbies are just supposed to bring out joy and be fun. When we negatively overreact and bash people for enjoying something that we don't like, we end up making a hobby that's supposed to be fun and turning it into a space where it isn't even safe to say our opinions. We make art into something objective, and that isn't a good thing. But it's really interesting, right? The power that comic books and other media have over us. Although Squirrel Girl shows how silly the Marvel Universe is, we still hold it in such high regard and weight. It's a testament to all of the people who made this amazing world in the first place. All the writers and artists who shaped and constructed this fictional world into one that feels so vast, captivating, and living. There's actually a book that explores this topic, one that I find to be one of the most underrated gems from Marvel in the past few years. It's a pure dose of fun, energy, and action that I've never really experienced before. I am talking about Christopher Hastings and Gurihiru's The Unbelievable Gwenpool. It sounds absolutely dumb, and in concept it is. The character is a combination of Gwen Stacy, who doesn't have much of a personality if I'm gonna be honest, and Deadpool, who we have already gotten so much of over the past few years. But somehow, it's really solid stuff, and it's not annoying at all. The character first appeared in a variant cover by Chris Michello, and she became popular enough for Jordan White, Heather Antos, and Christopher Hastings to flesh her out. Several comic appearances later, Marvel decided to give Gwen her own series, and what a title it is! The art by Gurihiru, a small studio from Japan, is absolutely gorgeous. They've done some amazing work over the past few years for multiple companies, and I cannot describe how much I love their art. It's an absolute blast to look at the pages of Gwenpool, full of color, emotion, and pure fun, which honestly sums up how I feel about the series. The comic stars Gwenpool, whose real name is Gwenpool, like the NBA player Jordan Poole, who is a comic book fan from the real world. But she ends up entering the very fictional universe she holds so dear. It's really cool to see her use the comic book knowledge she has to her advantage. She uses her knowledge of video games to beat a sentinel, and even her knowledge of characters' secret identities in order to get closer to them. Gwen gets herself in trouble by killing MODOK's greatest agent, and ends up having to work for him alongside Batroc the Leaper, the Terrible Eye, and the Megatony, who become the comedic and charming set of side characters Gwen has to team up with. It is such a joy to see them interact with one another and grow from being teammates forced to work together into a tightly knit group who actually care for one another. There's also other side characters like Cecile and their Doombot boss who make the book even funnier than it already is. But as fun and wild as the first few story arcs are, the Unbelievable Gwenpool takes an unbelievable turn. Do you wonder why Gwen doesn't care about going back home? In most stories where the protagonist gets stuck inside a world that isn't their own, their goal is to get back. In Centaur World, Horse's goal is to get out of Centaur World and go back to Ryder on Earth. In Back to the Future, Marty McFly gets stuck in 1955 and aims to travel back to his time period, 1985. But why is Gwenpool content with being stuck in the Marvel Universe? When she asks Doctor Strange to get her a social security number, they get to see her universe from afar. Gwen then states that it's probably for the best that she can't go back. So what makes her resent her world to such a degree that she would rather be stuck in a fictional one? Well, it's all revealed in the 16th issue of the series, and it's a pretty sad situation. How's all that going? You were doing NaNoWriMo, right? I really liked my idea, but it's not quite right yet to start writing, so I'm just waiting for inspiration. I knew it! You can't even commit to something you care about. Excuses for everything. It's not the writing I care about. Oh, come on, what? It's just fantasizing about a better world than this one. I see. Okay, tell me how awful this cushy life of yours is. It is. I couldn't graduate high school. All my friends moved away. I can't even get a job at a restaurant. The reason why Gwenpool would rather stay in the Marvel Universe than in our world is because of how useless she feels in hers. She wasn't able to graduate high school and isn't even good enough to wait tables at restaurants. Just imagine how worthless and incapable she feels. While all her peers are going to college and gaining progress in life, Gwen is lagging behind. As much as I sympathize with her situation, I also think that her parents' feelings are totally valid. Sure, Gwen is doing fine as of now, but what if her parents are gone? What would happen to her? Because of all this emotional weight Gwen has to carry, she turns toward the things that give her joy. Video games and comic books. The Unbeatable Gwenpool isn't just a story about fourth wall breaks and wreaking havoc in the Marvel Universe. It's also about the feeling of worthlessness and the power of comics as an escape. In her case, it's a literal one. She's actually in the Marvel Universe and loves almost every second of it. Gwen is in a place where she's finally worth something. A lead character in her own comic book, not the high school dropout and freeloader she is in real life. For the first time, she is finally important. She is finally seen. But this amazing life in a fictional world also comes with a price. As the series goes on, Gwen's morals start to deteriorate. She blows up Orto because of a contract and then proceeds to slaughter his entire crew when they chase after her. Future versions of Miles Morales, Vincent Dunan, and the Terrible Eye appear in front of Gwen's brother, who also is in the comic book universe. It turns out that they're after her. Why? Because in the future, Gwen becomes fully psychotic. Future Miles webs her up to a tree and plans to kill her. Do you understand how big of a deal that is for me? I don't kill. Dude, you look like the after picture of someone who just exited the presidency. You look old. Stop joking. Do you know how many lives you destroy? For years, you stay like whatever you're like now. A pain, sometimes helpful, usually not. Honestly, I didn't think about you much. But one day, something happened to you. Something happened and you really stopped liking all of us. I was the first one you came for. You revealed my identity to the entire world. It didn't even take a day. A day for my family to be killed. My mom, my dad, my wife, our kid. Oh my god, Miles. No, I couldn't have. I won't. Shut up. That's not all. You spilled everyone's secrets, revealed terrible things that caused the greatest superhero war of all time, just because it seemed like it would be fun for you to watch. It turns out that Gwen becomes evil in order for her life in comics to continue, to be in the world she loves just a bit longer. Because if she continued this path to try and be moral in the Marvel Universe, her series would end. Over time, people will lose interest in this current version of Gwenpool. But if she became a villain and committed all of these terrible actions, she would appear in all these other titles and become a ruthless and iconic villain to us readers. She would have a permanent place in Marvel history. But current Gwenpool decides in her heart not to follow her evil future self. And then the evil version of herself disappears. There is a huge cost to this decision though, as seen in the 23rd issue of the series when Gwenpool brings Doctor Doom to see her realm. Just accept this is real for a second, okay? We're standing outside of my comic book. The pages behind us are my past, and those pages are my future. And that's it? Those aren't many pages. Yeah, that's it. Looks like I've got about 2 issues left. Why? Because I refuse to be a supervillain. Okay, first of all, I just want to say that this is the most creative way I've seen a writer approach a comics cancellation. Marvel told Christopher Hastings that his book was about to end, so he actually made an in-universe reason why the real book was going away. And it's actually tied to the character's growth. Gwenpool learns to do the right thing, be good and kind to the characters around her, even though it comes at a cost. That cost being that her series would end soon. This brings us to my next point, the power of comics as a moral guide. Not only is comics an art form that allows us to escape from harsh reality into these fantastical worlds, it can also serve as a moral compass. Sure, it may sound silly, but I think superheroes have the ability to motivate and inspire us to do good, especially when you're a kid. You were supposed to be a joke, sell some comics, have a laugh, and then be forgotten. But you hung around, and people started to realize you and your powers were actually kind of a dangerous concept. You should be a villain, but you kept having a life of your own. You're more in control than you realize. When you refused to turn, you knew you were giving up your future. And you knew it in a real and concrete way that other heroes never get the opportunity to. You came here with the belief that none of the people here mattered because they weren't real. And you've come all the way to giving up everything to not hurt them. You did become a hero, Gwen. And that'll buy you some kind of future around these parts, even if it isn't in the pages of the Unbelievable Gwenpool Volume 1. Although Unbelievable Gwenpool may appear to just be a shallow Deadpool ripoff with more color, it's a genuinely fun and moving series that displays the power of comics to shape and form who we are. Their potential to tear us apart, but also their ability to teach us about life and lift us up from our darkest moments. As silly as these stories may be, they can affect us on a fundamental level, dictate the kind of people we grow up to become, and become a part of who we are. Comics, power and value and meaning, just like all other forms of art. And I find that to be very comforting. In a world where most people paint video games, movies, and comics as completely useless, it's nice to know that the time we've dedicated to these pieces of media have not gone to waste. There is value and meaning in the art we enjoy, and I'm grateful that I've got to experience some of the best, even though they may be a little juvenile and childish. Thank you so much for watching this video. According to YouTube analytics, around 10% of my viewers reach the end, so thank you for sticking around to the end, even if it's a really niche and weirdly specific topic. This video is probably the most emotional I've been working on a video before, so I hope that this resonated with you somehow. This is the first time in a while where I've been really proud of what I've been able to convey and accomplish in a video, and I'm really grateful that you have taken the time to watch it. Anyway, have a good day. My name is Joshua C, and I will see you in the next video.